The wipers slashed furiously across the windshield as I gripped the steering wheel. My knuckles white, the custom vanilla raspberry birthday cake for Lorelei sliding dangerously on the passenger seat after 12 straight hours of this nightmare. One wrong twitch and everything would shatter. Not just the cake I had stayed up all night baking in my tiny Portland kitchen, but the fragile secret that had kept us together for 2 years while her family treated our love like a contagious disease. My phone buzzed again in the cup holder, Lorelei's sister's name flashing like a warning light. And I knew without answering that the storm outside was nothing compared to the one waiting in Los Angeles. Naomi, pull over right now. The last voicemail had screamed. We know everything, and if you show up, we'll make sure you never work in marketing again. I hadn't slept. The rain had started somewhere around Redding and never let up, turning the I-5 into a river that hydroplaned my old SUV twice already. Every mile marker felt like a countdown to the moment I would either save us or ruin us both. Lorelei had no idea I was coming. Her 30th birthday was tomorrow, and after 6 months of stolen weekends and whispered promises that we'd come out when the time was right, I couldn't wait anymore. But the time had apparently run out without me. The cake smelled like hope and vanilla, the little gold 30 candles I'd tucked beside it already melting from the heat vents. I pictured Lorelei's face when she opened her door. Those green eyes lighting up the way they did when we first met at the San Francisco conference 2 years ago. Back when she was just the brilliant VP of strategy at her family's tech firm, and I was the freelance consultant they'd hired for a campaign. One late-night strategy session turned into coffee, then dinner, then everything we swore we'd keep quiet, because her parents still believed their only daughter would marry the son of their country club friends. Another call. This time it was my boss. Naomi, the client just pulled the account. They saw photos. Lorelei's family leaked them to the press. Call me when you're not driving into a lawsuit. I let it go to voicemail, heart hammering louder than the thunder. Photos. Which ones? The one of us kissing outside that little bakery in Seattle last month? Or the video from the beach where we thought no one was watching? I had been so careful. We both had. Until tonight. The GPS said 3 hours to her Silver Lake bungalow. 3 hours of rain and dread. I glanced at the cake again, the frosting already softening at the edges, and whispered to it like an idiot. Hold together for her, okay? She needs this. The road blurred. I blinked hard, refusing to cry because if I started I might never stop. Lorelei's voice echoed in my head from our last call 2 nights ago. I wish you were here, baby. This family dinner is killing me. They keep asking when I'm going to settle down with someone appropriate. I had laughed then. Now the word appropriate felt like a blade. A semi-truck roared past, spraying a wall of water that blinded me for 3 terrifying seconds. When the windshield cleared, my phone lit up with a news alert. Tech heiress Lorelei Voss caught in secret relationship. Family issues statement. My stomach dropped. They had already gone public. I pressed the accelerator harder, the engine whining in protest. If I could just get there before the reporters swarmed her house, before her mother's lawyers filed whatever restraining order they were drafting, maybe I could stand beside her when the world tried to tear us apart. The cake tilted again. I reached over with one hand to steady it, eyes never leaving the road. 12 hours. One cake. One chance to prove that our love wasn't the mistake they called it. But deep down I already knew the real storm wasn't the rain. It was whatever waited at the end of this highway. By the time I crossed into Los Angeles County, the rain had eased into a miserable drizzle, but my nerves were still screaming. The cake had survived, barely, the frosting a little lopsided, but the happy 30th, my love written in my shaky handwriting still legible. I hadn't answered a single call in the last hour. Lorelei's sister had left 3 more voicemails, each one colder than the last. You're destroying her life, Naomi. Turn around. Her mother had texted a single line. Do not come near my daughter. And my own inbox was flooded with interview requests from gossip sites I'd never heard of. I pulled off at a gas station in Glendale to splash water on my face and check the news. The headline glared back at me from my phone. Voss family empire rocked by lesbian scandal. Heiress's secret girlfriend linked to company data leak. Data leak? I hadn't touched their server since the campaign ended. But there it was, a blurry photo of Lorelei and me leaving a hotel in Portland 3 months ago, my hand in hers, her head on my shoulder. Someone inside the company had sold it. The article mentioned ongoing internal investigation and hinted that Lorelei's promotion to CEO was now under review. My hands shook as I paid for coffee I didn't want. The cashier, a kid no older than 20, gave me a sympathetic look. Rough night. I almost laughed. Rough didn't cover it. I was the woman who had just driven through hell with a birthday cake to tell the love of my life that our secret was now national news. And her family was preparing to sue me for intentional interference with familial relations. An old-fashioned tort they were actually dusting off. Back on the road, the city lights smeared through the wet windshield. Lorelei's bungalow was 20 minutes away. I rehearsed what I would say. I'm here. I'm not leaving. We face this together. But the closer I got, the more I wondered if she would even open the door. Her career was everything, built from the ground up inside her family's billion-dollar firm. I was the consultant who had fallen in love with the boss's daughter. In their eyes, I was the mistake that could cost them contracts, board seats, and the carefully curated image they'd spent decades polishing. I turned onto her quiet street, and my stomach clenched. 3 black SUVs were parked in front of her house, tinted windows reflecting the streetlights. Family security. I killed the engine half a block away and sat there, rain pattering on the roof, cake balanced on my lap. My phone buzzed. Lorelei this time. Where are you? Her voice was raw when I answered. Outside. I drove all night. Silence. Then a broken whisper. They're here, Naomi. My mother brought lawyers. They want me to sign something saying I'll cut contact. They're threatening to freeze my trust fund and pull my promotion. I told them to leave, but they won't. I'm coming in. No, wait. If they see you. I love you. That's not changing because of them. I hung up before she could argue, grabbed the cake, and stepped into the drizzle. My boots splashed through puddles as I walked up the path. The front door opened before I reached it. Lorelei stood there in an oversized sweater, eyes red, blonde hair loose and wild. Behind her, her mother and sister watched like sentinels. I lifted the cake like a shield. Happy birthday, baby. Lorelei's face crumpled. She stepped forward, ignoring her mother's sharp, Lorelei, don't, and pulled me into her arms right there on the porch. The cake pressed between us. Cameras flashed from the street. Reporters had already arrived. Her mother's voice cut through the rain. This ends now. You're ruining everything she's worked for. Lorelei held me tighter. No, Mom. She's the only thing that's real. That was the moment everything changed. The lawsuit papers arrived by courier 30 minutes later. The media camped outside. And I realized the real fight was just beginning. The next 48 hours blurred into a nightmare of flashing cameras and legal threats. Lorelei's family didn't waste time. By Monday morning, their attorneys had filed a civil suit claiming I had manipulated their daughter into a relationship that damaged the family business reputation. The complaint cited lost revenue projections and demanded I stay away from Lorelei and any Voss properties. My own boss called to say the agency was letting me go. Too much negative press. It's not personal, Naomi. But clients are pulling out. I sat on Lorelei's couch, the same birthday cake now half-eaten on the coffee table, while she paced in front of the window. Reporters shouted questions from the sidewalk. Lorelei, is it true you're choosing the consultant over your family legacy? Her phone kept ringing. Board members, investors, even old college friends suddenly concerned about optics. She finally turned to me, eyes fierce. I'm not signing anything. I'm done hiding. Baby, think about your promotion. Your trust fund. You've worked your whole life for this company. I hated saying it, but the words had to come out. Every decision now felt like life or death for both of us. If she walked away from her family, she lost millions and the career she loved. If she stayed silent, I lost her. I don't care about the money, she said, but her voice cracked. I care about waking up next to you without looking over my shoulder. Her sister showed up unannounced that afternoon, flanked by 2 security guys. Mom wants to meet. Neutral ground. No lawyers yet. We agreed to a coffee shop downtown, the kind with private back rooms. The moment we sat down, Mrs. Voss slid a folder across the table. Sign the NDA and the no-contact agreement. We'll drop the suit and reinstate your promotion, Lorelei. This phase ends today. Lorelei stared at the papers, then at me. I could see the war inside her. The girl who had been raised to put family first versus the woman who had found her real home in my arms. The silence stretched until it hurt. "I'm moving in with Naomi," she said quietly. "Today." Her mother's face went white. "You'll lose everything." "Then I lose everything." Lorelei stood, took my hand and walked out. The security guys didn't stop us. Outside, the rain had started again. We ran to my SUV, reporters chasing, cameras rolling. By the time we reached my apartment in Echo Park, the story was everywhere. Voss heiress chooses love over legacy, family vows legal war. That night we lay on my bed fully clothed, exhausted, her head on my chest. "I'm scared," she whispered. "But not of them. Of what they'll do to you." I kissed her forehead. "We face it together. No more silence." But even as I said it, I wondered how long we could survive the storm we had just invited inside. The lawsuit escalated faster than either of us expected. Voss family lawyers added claims of corporate espionage, alleging I had used our relationship to access confidential client data during the campaign. It was nonsense. I had never seen anything sensitive, but the accusation alone froze my bank accounts pending review and got me blacklisted from every marketing firm in California. Job interviews turned into interrogations. We saw the news. Any comment? Lorelei's promotion was officially revoked. The board cited distraction. She came home from the emergency meeting with a cardboard box of her things, eyes hollow. They voted me out of the succession plan. Effective immediately. I held her while she cried for the first time since the scandal broke. All those years of 80-hour weeks, all those sacrifices, gone because she refused to call our love a mistake. We tried to build a new normal. I took freelance gigs under a different name. She started consulting quietly for smaller startups that didn't care about the Voss name. But the media didn't let up. Paparazzi followed us to the grocery store. Online trolls sent death threats. Lorelei's childhood friends unfollowed her on every platform. Her father, who had stayed silent until now, released a statement calling me a predatory influence, who had seduced his daughter away from her responsibilities. The pressure started cracking us in ways I hadn't anticipated. One night after a particularly vicious tabloid piece, Lorelei snapped at me over dinner. "Maybe if I had just kept quiet like you wanted, none of this would have happened." The words landed like a slap. I stood up, hands shaking. "You think I wanted this? I drove 12 hours in a hurricane because I couldn't stand another second of hiding. But if you're regretting it..." "I'm not," she cut in, tears spilling. "I'm just tired of losing everything for us. We made up, of course. We always did. But the doubt lingered like smoke." The next morning her mother called, not to threaten, but to offer a deal. Drop the relationship publicly. Say it was a phase. We'll withdraw the lawsuit and restore her position. No one has to know the truth. Lorelei hung up without answering, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. The temptation to protect her future. That same afternoon I received a certified letter. The agency that had fired me was now suing me for reputational damages, on behalf of their lost clients. $500,000. I stared at the paper until the words blurred. If I fought it, I'd bankrupt us both. If I settled, I'd have to admit in writing that our relationship had been inappropriate. Lorelei found me on the balcony, letter crumpled in my fist. She took it gently, read it once, and then did something that shocked me. She laughed. Not happy laughter, but the broken kind that comes when you've hit rock bottom and there's nowhere left to fall. "They want us to be ashamed. I refuse." She pulled me inside, sat me on the couch, and opened her laptop. "We're going public. My terms. No more silence." She drafted a statement right there. A raw, honest letter to the board, the press, and her family explaining that love wasn't a scandal. It was the only honest thing in her life. She hit send before I could stop her. Within minutes the internet exploded again. But this time the narrative shifted. Support poured in from unexpected places. LGBTQ organizations, colleagues who had stayed quiet, even a few Voss employees who leaked stories of the family's controlling behavior. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. But I knew the family wouldn't surrender without one last fight. The final confrontation came in a sterile conference room on the 32nd floor of the Voss headquarters. Lorelei's mother had insisted on one last meeting, to settle this like adults. Security escorted us past the curious stares of employees who had once greeted Lorelei with reverence. The air felt thick with judgment. Her mother sat at the head of the long table, flanked by 2 attorneys and Lorelei's sister. No pleasantries. We are prepared to drop every lawsuit and restore your position, Lorelei. All you have to do is issue a joint statement with Naomi that the relationship was an error in judgment. You'll keep the trust fund. The board will reinstate you. Life returns to normal. Lorelei's hand found mine under the table. Normal was never real, Mom. This is. Her mother's eyes flicked to me with pure contempt. You've cost this family millions. You've embarrassed us in front of every investor we've ever courted. And for what? A consultant who couldn't even keep her own job. I felt the words like punches, but I kept my voice steady. I love your daughter. That's not an embarrassment. That's the truth you've been running from. The lead attorney slid a thick document across the table. Sign and this ends today. Refuse, and we will drag this through every court in California. Your names will be synonymous with scandal for the rest of your lives. Lorelei didn't even look at the paper. She stood, pulling me up with her. Then that's what they'll be synonymous with. 2 women who refused to let fear win. She turned to her mother one last time. I'm moving in with Naomi permanently. The bungalow is already listed for sale. My resignation from the company is effective immediately. Keep the money. I don't want anything that comes with conditions on who I love. The room went deathly quiet. Her sister started to cry. Her mother's face aged 10 years in 10 seconds. You'll regret this. No, Lorelei said softly. I already regret every year I spent pretending. I won't spend another one. We walked out together, security trailing us all the way to the elevator. Outside the building the usual paparazzi swarm waited, but this time Lorelei stopped and faced the cameras. I love Naomi. She's not a mistake. She's my future. And if that costs me everything else, it's still worth it. The flashbulbs exploded. We drove away in my SUV. The same one that had carried the birthday cake through the rain, while the city blurred past. For the first time since the scandal broke, the silence between us felt peaceful instead of heavy. That night we unpacked the last of her boxes in our apartment. The cake plate from her birthday still sat on the counter like a trophy. We ate the final slice straight from the fridge, laughing at how ridiculous and perfect it all was. But the lawsuits weren't over. The agency case was still pending. Her family had already filed an appeal on the trust fund. The world was still watching. And every morning I woke up wondering if today would be the day the pressure finally broke her. 6 months later the court date arrived. The agency had dropped their suit after public backlash turned against them, but the Voss family trust litigation dragged on. We sat in the hallway outside the courtroom, hands linked so tightly our knuckles were white. Lorelei wore the simple black dress she had bought with her first freelance paycheck. No designer labels, no family money. I wore the same blazer I'd driven through the rain in, now worn at the elbows from too many job interviews. Inside, the judge listened to arguments about undue influence and breach of fiduciary duty. Her mother testified with practiced tears. I took the stand and told the truth. I had never asked Lorelei for money, never pressured her, never wanted anything but her happiness. When Lorelei testified, her voice never wavered. The only mistake I ever made was letting fear keep me from living honestly. Naomi didn't take me away from my family. My family tried to take me away from myself. The judge ruled in our favor that afternoon. The trust fund was released. Lorelei could access it without conditions. The family's remaining claims were dismissed. Outside the courthouse reporters shouted questions, but we simply walked past them to the little park across the street. Lorelei pulled me onto a bench, the same one where we had shared our first secret kiss 2 years earlier during a lunch break. I'm free, she whispered, tears shining. We're free. I brushed a strand of blonde hair from her face. You gave up everything for us. No, she corrected gently. I gave up the cage. I chose the life I actually want. We sat there until the sun dipped low, the city humming around us. The scandal had cost us jobs, friends, and a fortune. It had tested every limit of our love. But here we were, still together, still breathing, still choosing each other every single day. Sometimes at night I still hear the rain from that 12-hour drive. I still see the cake sliding across the seat, and feel the terror that I might lose her. But then I look at Lorelei sleeping beside me, peaceful and mine. And I know the price was worth every mile. The world keeps asking the same question in every article, every comment, every whispered conversation. Was it worth it? Was choosing love over legacy, courage over silence, the right decision? Or did the cost prove that some secrets should have stayed hidden forever?